Welcome to Dare Education Awareness, where you can find the latest news on all Dare County schools, the Coastal Studies Institute, and the College of the Albemarle. We keep you informed, entertained, and up to date on education in Dare County.
So this is a long-term project focused on beach nourishment, primarily in Pea Island. The interesting thing about Pea Island, it is a national wildlife refuge, and so it's fairly protected. In 2014, the state of North Carolina, particularly DOT, completed a beach nourishment project to help protect NC-12. Since then, again, it's in a national wildlife refuge, so there hasn't been a whole lot of man-made, human-made impacts to that same location, to that same beach. So we can look at the implications, the influence of beach nourishment long-term since 2014 to really understand some of those long-term impacts associated with adding sand to the beach. So the study that we're doing here at the Coastal Studies Institute is really focused on the long-term implications, the long-term impacts of nourishment. Most studies that look at impacts of beach nourishment study it sort of right before the nourishment takes place and maybe a couple months after, or maybe a year or two after the nourishment project itself. Well, some of these processes take sometimes years to really demonstrate any implications, any changes that have taken place. And so because we have this opportunity at the Pea Island National Wildlife Refuge where there hasn't been another nourishment that's taken place, we have this opportunity to study that nourishment project over the course of 7 years. So we're looking at the sediment character, the sands themselves. We're looking at the morphology of the beach, the shape of the beach, that profile. We're looking at the invertebrates, the little critters that live inside the sand, because those critters, the ecology of the beach, are critical to shorebirds, turtles, things that feed on those invertebrates in the sand. And so although we're looking at these smaller things like the sediment character, the actual invertebrates, the implications of that move well up the food chain. And so with an understanding of these long-term implications of nourishment, we'll get a better understanding and be able to answer those questions of the influence that that project had on the ecology, on the morphology of the beach long-term, and then be able to apply that to other projects.
Every quarter, this is a quarterly survey, and it's been going on between us, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and the North Carolina Department of Transportation since 2012. And what we do is we go out and we collect biological samples, sampling invertebrates in the swash zone and invertebrates up on the upper beach area to track abundances, shifts in distribution and populations, etc. We also collect geological data and sand samples in the swash and in the upper beach. We collect information on sediment compaction. We use GPS systems that are very precise in terms of location in the X, Y, and the Z, so the height. In fact, the elevations can be accurate up to 1 centimeter, and sometimes even less than that. So we collect elevations along the beach, what we call a cross shore, that's going from the shoreline up to the dune, and it gives us what's called a shoreline profile. What we do is we bring the sediment materials back to the lab, we clean them up and dry them, and then we go through a process called mechanical sieving. Mechanical sieving essentially separates the grains of sand into different size classes, and we use that information to tell us what's going on the beach. We can tell how much wave energy is out there and how much changes in the tide, and it gives us some idea then of how that might be affecting the ecological systems, the biology, the impacts associated with a lot of the animals that are on the beach, because they depend heavily in terms of their ability to feed, their ability to move around on the beach based on the distribution and size classes of the sediments out there. So the sediment analysis that we do is very important in that regard.
What we found is that the sand that was used was a really good match for Pea Island. Previous studies that have worked on short-term impacts of beach nourishment, over months and years, that have studied places that didn't have a good match showed widespread mortality of invertebrates. And our study showed that, right away, like within a couple weeks following the nourishment in Pea Island, we had some mortality, but it came back really fast. That's why we think it's important to think about that and really try to match the sands as best as possible. Again, previous work in other areas that had bad match in materials showed mortality. I mean, widespread mortality, and it changed the ecology of the beach. So this partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has really allowed us to study this process that we probably couldn't have done elsewhere. It's like a laboratory on the beach itself, because it is protected, because we have such a good partnership with Fish and Wildlife Service. And so that's been really helpful and unique to this particular project.
The main thing that I want to do is to make students be able to see beauty better. Whether it's in making a pot, or whether it's in drawing, or whether it's in painting a picture. And for someone to look at a green tree and say they see 7 different shades of green in that tree, then I feel like I've been successful, because I've taught them how to see those different things that make life beautiful. I enjoy teaching very much. I consider it a privilege to be able to share my knowledge with other people. The way that I teach the classes is I take the beginner students and I teach them the basics of whether it's painting or pottery. And a lot of the people that come back have taken the classes 4 and 5 years. They come in, they have ideas that they want to create, and I'm sort of a resource to help them if they have questions, if they want to know different little tricks to make things be enhanced or better, then they use me like that.
These facilities here are very well equipped, even for a professional. The other students that come here are very kind. We have a nice social environment here. It's engaging, and the way the art facility here is run is on a very professional level. It's very relaxing, it's very good for the brain, it's very soothing and therapeutic. College of the Albemarle is great. I'd say any classes for enrichment or to improve your skill set here on any level, I can't say enough nice things about the College of the Albemarle.
I would encourage people to take any kind of art class, my class or any person's art class, because life has so many pressures that when you create art, you're sort of in this zone, and it is sort of hard, and it's an emotional thing. It's almost like putting a puzzle together, but there's a big gratification in the end when you fit all the pieces together and you have something beautiful to look at. If a student comes to me and says they're interested in taking my class, I'm going to tell them that I'm very excited and I want them to come in and have fun and just enjoy the medium that we're working on.
So far, we've been in school this is our 3rd week, and already I can tell by being here just what we can do with collaboration, with helping them with executive functioning skills, helping them get pencil back on paper is so helpful for them. One goal I have is taking some of the strategies, the AVID strategies, school-wide, and seeing it in every classroom. What it would look like is having our site team take the strategies back to the classrooms and seeing that consistently throughout the school. The power of what AVID brings school-wide goes through every facet of how a school operates. So it's from the leadership, from our instructional practices, from the culture within the school, spreading that message of the importance of college readiness, and also just the AVID's mission, which is preparing students for a global society, whether it's trade school, a job in the future, and making sure that they have those skills that are needed.
I've been teaching here at First Flight Middle School for 22 years now, and I've been with the AVID program for 15 or 16 years. I found it to be probably one of the most powerful programs to help the kids not only get ready for college, but just to do better with their organization and just about anything they would want to go into. My daughter was in AVID. She's now in her first year of college, and it was amazing how prepared she is, one, going, and also just the schools. She applied to 7 different schools, and AVID helps them apply, and she got accepted to all of them. And on top of that, they gave her a lot of financial aid because they saw that she's a dedicated student and she had been through this program for so long.
So some examples that I can envision, and some of our teachers are already doing now, AVID calls it WICR. And WICR has to do with reading, writing, how we face inquiry, which is questioning and problem solving. Also our organizational skills, so how we do note-taking, how we keep our binders or things organized, and also those collaborative structures, which are so important for students to be able to work in a team, to talk to each other, express their views, and also maybe deal with opinions contrary to what they believe.
One of the great AVID strategies that I like to incorporate in my classes is Cornell note-taking. We call them C notes for short. And it's a note-taking strategy that developed out of Cornell University, and they proved to be a great way to help students organize information and recall what they wrote when they go back to study later on.
One strategy that I like, especially reading stories or working through a text that we're reading, is working in collaborative groups so that students are able to talk and discuss certain elements of the text or the story, as well as using graphic organizers to take notes and really pull out the important parts of a story or a text so that they are able to synthesize that information and have a really good understanding of the text and build their overall comprehension.
We are practicing lots of AVID strategies this year, and one that we just did this week is called Think, Pair, Share. And the students were given a word. They had to write down everything they could remember about that word. It was one of their vocabulary words. And then they got into a partner situation where they shared with their partner. Partner had to listen. We talked about listening skills. And then they switched. And then when we were done with that, they had to share with the whole class. But the big kicker was that their list started out small when they were doing their own thinking. As they shared and listened, their list grew and their knowledge grew.
So I have seen other schools and the success that AVID has in those schools, and my dream is to make sure that we have the opportunity for all of our students here at First Flight Middle and also throughout Dare County to be able to have the opportunity to close that achievement gap using and through the lens of AVID and what it has to offer.